Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I found this tweet to be kind of interesting. Brett Hill here, he's saying, first this guy, he says, Ripple versus SEC lawsuit has entered into the 4th year, but we won't see 4th anniversary. Settlement soon. Anyway, this guy's basically talking about how there's settlement vibes are in the air. But they make an interesting point that this thing's going into the 4th year. No other digital asset has gone through this. None. No other digital asset has been vetted like XRP, which for me, it's a good time to kind of go through some of the things that we're seeing and some of the things that are unresolved, that to really take a step back and look. Here I sit with what I think is the digital asset. I know it's the only digital asset with legal clarity, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, not Solana, none of this stuff. It's the only digital asset that has had complete transparency from the word go. Now, so we're now, and I've been mentioning this over the last few days, never forget, Solana was the main digital asset that Sam Bankman-Fried was holding up. Okay, I am convinced that FTX was born of a government operation. I'm convinced of it. And Solana was the digital asset that the guy was holding up. Solana was a big part of it. And now we've watched them, and now Cathie Wood is joining the thing. All the same people that are paraded out on CNBC to talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum, all the same people that are Bitcoin maxis and all, and they never address the fact that Homeland Security met with the 4 Satoshis, all those same people who ignore all of the basic common sense things of it, all the narrative carriers, all the same people, they picked up this Solana baton about a week or 2 ago, and I have watched it and I've been telling you about it. And now Cathie Wood falls in line.
Of Solana.
And don't think it's a coincidence that this is happening as they all see their precious Ethereum falling by the wayside.
Of Solana.
It's kind of like they've moved on to their next pump and dump or something.
And to watch the developers stick with Solana speaks volumes to us. I always say, follow the developers. This notion of DeFi, decentralized finance, that, you know, if people just start looking at it and thinking about it as simply the internet financial system, all that's happening now with Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana is developers are building in native currencies and much more streamlined, fewer intermediaries.
What she's really telling you is, listen, all of us have invested in all of these companies around Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, and so we need you to buy this.
Streamlined ways of dealing in the financial system.
All right, so she said some very...
All right, so there's that. And then remember just a week ago when Jamie Dimon was recommending to Elizabeth Warren that they should just ban crypto altogether. Well, my question to Elizabeth Warren is, why would he want to do that when he was with Joseph Lubin at Ethereum from the very beginning?
Jamie Dimon, our dear friend at JP Morgan, has many people working on blockchain. So some of our closest collaborators, a group has built something called Quorum, and we are significant participants in that project. Quorum is an enterprise-friendly system built on Ethereum with an overlay for confidential transactions. And it's one of the main elements of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance.
Folks, the reason I'm going through all this stuff is that we live in the age of lies. We're surrounded by lies. And it's not just in crypto, it's in the traditional media too. we talk about more of those lies in DAIXRP.com, because some of them are governmental lies that even Tucker Carlson's afraid to talk about. But we'll get into that. But the reason I'm pointing out all of these is that all of these things, so many of these things are lies on their face. These people just never thought that anybody would point them out. They you know, if they had just sued Ripple and not tried to do victory laps and have Joseph Lubin's out there taking shots and all of that, then maybe we wouldn't have smelled that something wasn't quite right, and then maybe we wouldn't have looked into it. But they did. It wasn't enough to just sue. It wasn't enough to just give Ethereum a free pass. They had to sue Ripple, and then they had to run their mouths about it. And that is the reason to this day we're pointing all the lies out. Now, speaking of, Steven Narioff says he got no, on the biggest bombshell in crypto history, he got no press on his revealing that he said that the DAO hack was an inside job with the guys from Ethereum. So I said, hey, Steven, Laura Shin can correct the record on this for you. She wrote a book and even said she had found the hacker. She even named the hacker's name. Has she invited you on to clear this up? After all, she's a crypto journalist. Surely she is fascinated by your findings. Here's the article. This is an article that she wrote right here, where Austrian programmer and ex-crypto CEO likely stole $11 billion of Ether. So she's written a book on it. So why on earth would she not want to have Steven Narioff on to hear his side of it? Why would she not? She'd be doing backflips to have him on, wouldn't she? She's had Vitalik Buterin on. She's had his father on. She's had Joseph Lubin on. Why would she not want to have Steven Narioff on? So then you've got this, and this caught my attention this morning too, because I think this is 1,000% over the target. What about the XRP as a security narrative for 2 years before the lawsuit? No one talks about that much. Loads of maxis like Tone Vase spearheaded what felt like a coordinated attack. Why did they choose XRP for that narrative? Who's handling them? What did they know? He's 1,000% over the target. Why XRP? How did they know of all the thousands of digital assets? How did the Tone Vase of the world, all these narrative carriers, how did they know? What was it? Why XRP? Why did they go after XRP? How did they know to target XRP? And I said, oh, it's coordinated, all right. Then there's this. How did these guys, this is the multi-coin capital guys, and we went through all about them. Remember, the guys that were in the room to get the Ethereum free pass, 2 venture capital firms, Union Square Ventures and Andreessen Horowitz, both of them are limited partners in multi-coin capital, which is this Kyle Samani that's talking in this clip. So I asked the question, how did they know to pick XRP to short? Why XRP? There are thousands of digital assets that have been created. How did these guys know to short XRP? And before I play the clip, Jimmy Valley is pointing out another important thing. He's asking Cynthia Loomis to comment because two of her biggest donors are Multicoin Capital and Andreessen Horowitz. And remember, she never talks about XRP, and she was one of the main ones that was pumping the Ethereum thing in Congress a year or so ago. How did this guy know to short XRP? Why, of all the thousands of digital assets that he was thinking the SEC might go after and short and file a lawsuit against so that he was going to make a bet to short it, why did he choose XRP?
There was some other news this week, too. We have Andreessen Horowitz, one of the leading Silicon Valley venture capital firms, opening their first cryptocurrency fund, $300 million they put into it. It's the first major VC firm to open a crypto fund. You also have a crypto hedge fund. I mean, does this industry need more competition in the fund world? Does this make it harder for you to raise money?
I think it's a super good thing for the ecosystem. Chris Dixon, who's one of the GPs there, and I think Katie Hahn's the other. Chris is an LP in our fund in Multicoin, so know them for a while. overall, it's a great thing for the ecosystem. We're talking to a lot of endowments today who are looking at the crypto ecosystem, and there's just a real challenge for them and kind of career risk because it's unknown space, a lot of unknown fund managers, and being able to take a top tier firm with a very well known general partner there.
This guy just happens to be a big Solana guy too, by the way. FYI.
Been there for 5 or 6 years now, and to kind of launch a dedicated vehicle, it's a very good way for existing institutional LPs to be able to invest in crypto through a known entity or a known vehicle. So I think it's kind of the trickle of opening the floodgates of institutional capital is starting to come in through Chris and Katie's new fund.
Tell us, which coins are you shorting?
We're definitely very long biased, and it is our general bias is to be fully deployed or close to fully deployed. And that's where we want to be. We are not fully deployed at the moment, and we are not fully long right now. We have a few shorts open. That's largely a reflection of market cycle, and then a few idiosyncratic views about certain assets. So right now we have, for example, shorts open on Ripple and Litecoin. Litecoin, in my view, has no reason to exist. It was a fork of Bitcoin. It's just been sitting around.
It's a harsh assessment.
The only investment thesis I've ever heard for Litecoin is it's a testnet for Bitcoin, but that's not an investment thesis. And so, it trades. It's got a 2, 3, 4 billion market cap, whatever the number is. But it doesn't really have a reason to exist. It's clearly more risky than.
Why doesn't he think that the SEC is going to file a lawsuit against Litecoin for being a security?
Bitcoin just kind of structurally in terms of brand and everything else. When we look at Ripple, Ripple they keep selling into the market. Based on kind of the SEC's guidance from a couple weeks ago about Ether being not being a security, it's quite clear to us that Ripple is a security. We don't know when that news is going to drop. But the catalysts seem to have kind of gone.
Why did this guy never come out and say, hey, go on TV and say, hey, we're shorting Luna because we're worried that the SEC is going to come after Luna and call it a security, or we're worried that they're going to do that to Solana, that the SEC is going to come out and call Solana or Algorand. Why none of those? Why have we never seen that? But we saw a coordinated effort for years to do anything and say anything necessary to slow down XRP. Why? The answer to that question, I believe, will expose a ton of nefarious actors in crypto. And that's the reason you've never seen any of them respond to anything that we've seen in exposing all this, because they can't. To respond is to expose themselves. A wallet flagged by as owned by former President Donald Trump sent $2.4 million in Ethereum to Coinbase in the past 3 weeks, where it was presumably sold. Then we have this new Putin ally Vladimir Egorov falls to his death from a 3rd floor window. Do we live in interesting times, or do we live in interesting times? Now, I had one question for Brian Costello. He said, he made this tweet today. He says, once the, 3-letter, that country that starts with a C, once they bought our political class through investments and market access, which can be instantly revoked, there's no longer a need for traditional espionage. The conflict has evolved into an economic war where China has strategically positioned operatives within our corporations while denying us access to theirs. And I said, Jay Clayton, Bill Hinman, Gary Gensler, Brian Costello, question mark? I mean, these two guys took Alibaba public, the same company that wanted to buy MoneyGram that was rejected, and then later Ripple got a deal with MoneyGram, and then he drops a lawsuit on Ripple. He makes sure that the lawsuit goes through before they leave, okay? Then this guy meets with this guy the day before the Ripple lawsuit was dropped. So I'm sure he didn't talk about that with Jay Clayton. I'm sure it wasn't like a plan or anything like that, right? Okay, I'm going to go into DAIXRP.com, and we're going to talk about the 2 things that Tucker Carlson says he is afraid to talk about, and we are only going to talk about them in the private group, because if he's afraid to talk about them out here, I am too. Go to DAIXRP.com for that. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that if Tucker Carlson is scared to talk about these things, then I am too. And so we'll only talk about them in DAIXRP.com.